Hey guys, and welcome back to Australian Fitness Stories. So today we are going to be talking to my husband. So this is Tommy. So I have spoken about him in some previous podcasts. So he has had some pretty crazy medical things happen to him, but it really hasn't slowed him down in his own health and fitness. And I think that that is pretty incredible. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat to him. So
it's definitely slowed me down.
Slowed you down. It hasn't stopped you though.
It hasn't stopped me, but it's been some hurdles.
It has been some hurdles. So
especially this last one.
We'll run through the first one. So let's start from this. This actually happened before we met. So this was when you were 25?
25, yeah. I got
look up at the camera.
Cryptococcal meningitis. It crippled me. It's pretty crazy. You know, I was 25. I was feeling invincible, going to the gym six days a week and being a carpenter too, like active all day, every day. And I was pretty happy with how I was looking. And then in November 2013,
I'm not good with dates.
Anyway, I just started to feel some pain. Like every time my feet had hit the ground, my heels would hit the ground, I'd feel this pain shoot across my shoulder blades. I thought I'd put my back out, and I just tried chiropractors, physios, all this, and then I went to see this last chiropractor, and he took an X-ray of my chest and back because he was like, something's not right. And then they found a mass on my lung, and they're like, you got to go to the hospital right now. Because by that point I was still at work, but I was like able to walk maybe 10 meters, and then I'd like literally curl up on the ground, throwing up, just dizzy as all hell all the time. And
most normal people would have gone to the hospital before this point.
I was trying to sort it out. Like I was going to GPs and specialists. Like I didn't think it was anything crazy. And then went into hospital on the 19th of December, and they did a biopsy. They stuck a massive needle through my back into the lump and took a biopsy of it. And they were like, yeah, you've got one of the rarest forms of meningitis known, and it's pretty severe. Like, the details they gave me were pretty scary, but I was like,
of course you were.
Feeling all right.
So did they work out that there was spurs on your brain before or after they did surgery?
It was definitely after. They obviously they couldn't know there was stuff on my brain until they found what it was in my lung. And then because they've seen this case before, so it starts in your lung. You get it from, so a lot of the people that get the cryptococcal meningitis strand, they've got an immune deficiency,
like an immune deficiency.
Immune deficiency disease. So they were like freaking out. They didn't know what was going on with me. And I came back all good for that. It's just I just had that super rare moment, and they found that the one that started in my lung came from the spotted red gum tree.
What are the chances of that though? Like he literally breathed in some pollen from a tree.
And then it grew to be a mass the size of a golf ball in my lung that was hard as a rock, and it was fungal. And then that transferred to my brain, which gave me the meningitis. And so meningitis is when your cerebral spinal fluid, which surrounds your brain and your spine, basically, the type of meningitis, I don't know everything about meningitis, but the type I had, the cerebral spinal fluid's usually thinner than water, and your body produces 20 milliliters of it every hour, and then it drains off 20 milliliters every hour.
So it's just a cycle. Yeah.
It's just like changing the oil in your car constantly. So around your brain just keeps it all clean. And it's thinner than water, and there's a little port in the bottom of your skull that drains it down like your throat or something like that. No, I'm not an expert. But it drains out through the drainage port. So when the meningitis I had turns it from thinner than water to as thick as jelly, and it's surrounding your brain and your spine. And because it's gone from thinner than water to as thick as jelly, it's can't drain off. So your body's still producing 20 milliliters every hour, but then it can't drain off. So you get this cranial pressure, and the way they test your cranial pressure, they put a lumbar puncture in, which is another big needle, and they get you to lay on the bed sideways, curl up into a ball, and you're not allowed to move.
Kind of like an epidural?
except bigger needle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because they've got to, it's, again,
Yeah.
it's got to drain out that thick fluid. So, and they test your cranial pressure by putting a needle into your spine, and then they have these tubes which measure in centimeters of pressure. So the pressure coming out of your spine through that needle will push the fluid up a certain amount up the tube. And 15 centimeters is, I think this is right. God.
From memory.
Yeah. The 15 centimeters is your usual like gauge, and they somewhere between 7 and 12 is like normal. And then they had to put tube on top of tube on top of tube for mine. The cranial pressure got that high that it set me blind for 2 or 3 weeks, crushed the optic nerves onto the bottom of my skull. And they were like, I'm not sure if I was going to get my vision back.
Because you also obviously had to have surgery. So the lump in your lung, you had a partial lobectomy, so half of your lung.
Yeah, so that was
beginning or end?
No, that was 12 months after my recovery.
Oh, okay.
So first operation I had was a lumbar
shunt?
A VP? No, yeah, it's a lumbar shunt. Yeah, sorry, lumbar shunt was first. And they put that, so that's basically a shunt that they put in your spine to release pressure off your spine, and they wrapped around the side into my abdomen.
And drained
the fluid off my spine and my brain, which gave me instant relief. Because before they did the shunts, I was in hospital for a few months there, and I was having lumbar punctures daily to relieve the pressure because I was too weak and that to go into surgery.
Were they painful? Like, it's probably a stupid question.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's honestly something you definitely do not look forward to every day. Because you're like, oh yes, a big needle in my spine for 20 minutes while they drain fluid off it, and you're not allowed to move. Otherwise, you could function. Yeah, well, I don't know if you could paralyze, but
I don't know. Needle and spine sounds pretty.
Yeah, definitely not good. So I had to get strong enough because it took a month to diagnose me. So most people are dead by then, and then I got diagnosed late. And then I still managed to be one of the ones that made it through.
So you went back, 12 months later, and I
can't remember the exact time frames. Like, I'm just stickler for details.
But, look, it's not a strong suit.
But so one of the first surgeries was the lumbar shunt, which I got put in my spine around my abdomen, and then I went home for a couple weeks. And in that time, I thought it would be a great idea to just, like, I'm out of the hospital, I've got my shunt in, I'll go over to Morton for 2 weeks, go over to Morton, it's raining the whole time. And
it literally doesn't surprise me that you did that.
And while we were driving around the 4x4 tracks, I had ruptured my shunt in my spine. So by the time we were on the barge back, I had a sack of fluid, like, half a mango sticking out of my spine because the fluid was just draining out of my spine, not going in the shunt, and just creating a fluid sac on my spine. So then went back into hospital, and then they took out the lumbar shunt and put in the VP shunt, which
you still got. So it's like it's like a little bulge with the scar that sort of wraps around this way, and then this is the tube that runs all the way down into his stomach. So when we first met, he had the VP shunt, and I remember the whole time on our date just looking at it thinking that he had this really prominent neck vein, because I did not know what it was. You don't normally whip these ones out on a first date, but when we competed together and he got really lean, you could actually see the tube run the whole way down and like across his stomach, which was pretty crazy.
So VP shunt went in, and I can't remember because I was in and out of hospital for 6 months, and I can't remember at what point it was, but I got over being in the hospital. So I was like, can I go? Because I was just literally staying there to get medication through a PICC line, which went in my bicep there and fed a line straight to my heart. So, because a IV line can only stay in for a couple of days, whereas PICC line can stay in for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It's a lot cleaner. So I just got sent home with this little box that I had to clip on every day to give myself some ibuprofen, something like that.
I'm not sure.
One of those drugs that
Antibiotics or something?
No, I can't remember. It was supposed to kill the fungal infection.
Oh, okay.
So it was pretty crazy stuff. But it didn't make me feel great. But I was like, I got over this hospital, so I want to go home. Went home, and I don't know if I instantly regret it, but my partner at the time definitely instantly regretted it because I was just hard work. You know, I barely.
It is hard looking after someone though.
Well, I could barely, like, I'd constantly, because we had tiles, like, I'd constantly fall over. Like, I was like a decrepit old man, like, get up off the couch and just, like, fall over. And then she'd be like, just go back to the hospital. I'm like, I don't want to be there. But then
you don't like the hospital.
I ended up going back there.
Yeah.
I just needed that break, you know. And then, yeah, once I got out of hospital, it took another 6 months to recover to a point where I could go back to work.
When's your surgery in amongst this?
So had the first 6 months, like got admitted on the 19th of December.
Yeah.
It was 6 months in and out of hospital to get to a point. And then I had 6 months of recovery after that. So just even like, because I ended up moving, like breaking up with the ex and then moving in with my brother.
Obviously, but.
Yeah, but moved in with my brother, who was great. Like he just said, roof over your head, food on the table, bedroom, like, and then as long as it takes you, it takes you. And I was not the best housemate because I was young and I was not in the best headspace. So I was a bit of a grub, but he put up with me and very grateful for that. Then 6 months it was at the point where like I'd sit down on the ground in front of the TV, and then to get up was anxiety because I was that weak to just even get up off the ground, push up off the couch. Like I'd have to psych myself up for 20 minutes to be able to do that. But then you push through it and you get to the point, and then just start bit by bit going back, you know, a few days a week here and there.
Was there a part of you that just sort of thought, why do I even bother?
Never. That was my first big medical thing. So I was like, I got this.
But
you know?
some people only take one and they throw in the towel because it would be mentally challenging when things that used to be so easy to you are suddenly so hard.
I've never been one to just like think that there's no end to it. It's just, you know, you can definitely be at a point where you're like, oh, I hope this ends soon, or I hope I get over this mound soon, or whatever. But you never, you know, this last bout, which we'll get to later, has been probably because it's the most recent too. It's the most easily embedded. You know, you get through these things and you remember the good stuff and you delete the bad stuff. You know,
yeah, I suppose, because
it's no point in holding on to the bad shit. You might as well just pick the things that'll help you get through stuff rather than the stuff that's going to beat you down. You know, because I could have easily just highlighted all the bad bits and then be like, oh, I've got to go through this again, you know.
You could have ended up really bitter, I feel like things like that can make you really bitter.
I think as my life goes on and I go through more of these things, I'm getting bitterer and bitterer.
I don't know if look, I feel like as we get older, that's happening to everyone a little bit. Yeah. But so in amongst there also had half your lung taken out. So there's actually a picture on his Instagram. So when he got the surgeon to take a photo of the bit of lung that they actually took out, which also, to be honest, doesn't surprise me. So he has that on his Instagram feed. So he also showed me that on one of our sort of beginning dates. But he was pretty lucky when they did do the surgery. They went in through his back rather than completely opening up your chest, right? So the recovery was a lot better.
Yeah.
So here's the lung that got taken out. But look, you can still blow up balloons and like lung capacities. Like it's filled back out in its cavity. And it's pretty good now.
It is.
So that was, when you were 25. So how long?
26.
26?
It was at least a year after, like I had to get my strength, and like they gave me the drugs to kill it, and they kept testing my bloods to make sure that there was, you know,
you were still getting blood tests when we met.
The markers were there, but they weren't elevated, so they knew that it was dead or dormant.
Yeah.
So once I'd recovered, was back at work, you just get back on your feet, you just get back to work, and then you got to go in to get half your lung taken in. Like, and there's another. I can't remember what the recovery was for that, but it wasn't too bad. It was maybe
a couple of months.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I think I was going back and just site supervising.
Okay.
For a bit there.
Because it would be hard having a physical job.
And then I was at site, so I could test myself every day, like find something to do. And then if it was too much for me, there was always other guys there that could do it, But I was just constantly one foot in front of the other every day, just having a crack and trying to get back to normality.
What was your headspace like during all that?
Very positive. I was a very, very, very positive person for first 30 years of my life.
Until you met me.
I'm definitely more positive now, but it's different kind of positivity. You're a bit more awake to. So when you go through your first traumatic thing, you're like, okay, this is new, and it's all a new experience. You don't know what's coming. You don't know how long the recovery is going to take. You don't know what sort of hurdles you're going to face. But then once you've been through it once, and then again, and then again. And then you just start to know what to expect. So you get, you can make it through it, but you're definitely not as perky going through it because you're like, fuck, I'm just going to head down, go through this, do it my way. And then, you'll come out the other side, but you're definitely not like when I had my meningitis, I had people coming up to the hospital regularly to try to keep my spirits high. Whereas now I don't think I'd need that. I just need you. That's it. But it's, because
not your first rodeo now.
Yeah, like everybody who knows me, they're like, Thomas is back in hospital again. But it's definitely an eye-opener, that's for sure.
So how long do you think it was until you were back in the gym normally?
Like back to full speed.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever got back to
what you were before.
Well, I was an animal until I was 25. Like, you come out, you're in your teens to your mid-20s. You're just like, gym is life and that sort of thing. Whereas after something like that, you sort of get different priorities. And I got back into it, and I competed after the lung came out. So, which was a joke.
Yeah, comp prep wasn't really for you.
You got to. I've ticked it off. I've experienced it.
Have.
Like I didn't want to. I just wanted, because when I got out of after the VP shunt and the lobectomy and that, they were like, just take it easy. You got a VP shunt in your head, like you don't want to be pushing too hard or whatever, and you just work out your limits, which my limits didn't change. It's just I just had to work back up to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was sort of the first rodeo. And I suppose the second one was while we were together about 3 years ago. Yes, a little bit over 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
So do you want to run through what happened there?
Run through that one.
Okay. All right. Well, I can say it from my side, I suppose. So I was visiting a friend and then I got a text message. I'm pretty sure it was a text message. No, you called me.
I definitely didn't text you from being inside of a bobcat. Oh, here we go. I was like, oh.
Called me and said, I've shattered my foot. And he sounded really panicked. And then I said, like, where are you? And he'd hung up on me by then. And then he wasn't answering, but our phones are linked. So I can map him. So I just mapped to his location and just drove there and rocked up at the job site. And you uncrust yourself by that point.
Yeah.
So look, I don't know a lot about machinery, but bobcats are the ones that scoop the dirt. So he was on a bobcat, scooped the dirt, and then the bobcat has tipped boards, and all of the safety features on this bobcat failed. The people that owned it had added in some extra stupid bar in the bobcat that shouldn't even have been there, that when the boom dropped down, crushed his foot in it sideways like a little sandwich.
Yeah, it was not pleasant.
And then he's had to operate, so it's all foot pedals, so he's then had to, with his other foot, operate the foot pedals, uncrush himself and get his foot back out. So when I rocked up, you weren't in the bobcat anymore. No. You were sitting in the car and you still had your sock on, but his foot was like, it was very swollen. And I've watched this one drained fluid out of his knees with like a syringe and cut himself open a million times and doesn't blink an eye. But I could tell that he was in a lot of pain from this one. So I was freaking out a little bit because I hadn't seen him in this much pain before. And we'd already called an ambulance and we were waiting, and it ended up like we were waiting ages. So I ended up calling the ambulance as well, but obviously they can't provide ETAs to the public just in case ambulances have got to be rediverted. They don't want to promise you 5 minutes and then it ends up being longer. So they don't really tell you. But we ended up waiting about an hour and a half for the ambulance because I was debating just throwing him in my car and driving to emergency myself. But the ambulance rocked up, jacked you full of the green whistle. Yeah. And then took him into hospital.
I thought I was going to be out the next day. I thought they were going to cast me up and send me on my way.
Well, I was expecting that maybe you'd have to have some screws put in.
Yeah.
Or something, like was what I was sort of thinking.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him to have crushed all of the arteries in his foot, which was the main issue.
Yeah, circulation.
Is that because he'd crushed all of the arteries, he stopped getting blood supply to a lot of his foot. So his big toe copped it the worst. So we had to wait 3 weeks.
It was around 3 weeks for the big toe to die.
So the doctors had said that they wanted to wait to see how much of his foot died because they didn't want to just go in gung-ho and amputate too much. They wanted to see how much of his foot would die on its own and declare itself. So by the end of the 3 weeks, his big toe was black and you could tap it and it was hard like a rock. And I've got this video when I had my acrylics like tapping his toe and it sounds like you're tapping on a glass window. It was pretty crazy.
It was weird. Because the first big problem when we got in was compartment syndrome.
Yes. Well,
so,
you got that too.
So that was like the first big, like that, forget about the toe amputation, like the compartment syndrome, because my foot got crushed. So got crushed sideways down to 30 millimeters. So you can imagine your whole foot just having a bar. So on the side, a plate across the back here, and then a bar just crushing it down to 30 millimeters. So my foot was like a banana. And
you were wearing steel caps, but steel caps weren't going to save you.
It was just one of those little tiny bobcats with the hand steering and the foot pedal controls. And when it went forward, I put my foot up to brace myself so I didn't get jutted in the thing. And then my foot slipped out, and my other foot went onto the pedal that controlled the boom, which started bringing the boom down. And I'm got the machines forward, so I'm trying to get my leg back in. It was going to hit me halfway down my shin, but I ended up getting it back in, so I just grabbed my foot. And then I remember.
I think I've got a photo of when you first went into the hospital and how swollen and bruised your foot was. Let me have a look. Oh, here we go. No. Oh no, that one's all after the surgeries. So we ended up having
16 surgeries.
I think it was 16 surgeries over 6 weeks. So they were gradually amputating bits and pieces and doing debridements.
Yeah, okay. They were doing because it got to the point where they were literally having to take dead flesh off every couple of hours. So they couldn't take me into surgery every couple of hours. So they were doing debridements while I was awake. So I'm laying in bed, and they'd give me the happy gas, which does nothing for pain. It's just
distract you.
Yeah, it's just distract you a little bit, like you just get a funny voice or whatever. But they were like peeling these bandages off every couple of hours, and everything's sticking, and it's like so tender.
It was pretty full on. For anyone that's got a weak stomach, look away. I'll tell you when to look back, but I'll show you guys a little bit of a video so you can sort of fathom what we were dealing with. So this was the state of his foot getting these bits and pieces done. So it was pretty full on. It was very graphic. So you can look back now if you looked away for that one. Yeah, for a while there, they were planning on amputating his leg below the knee. And I remember sitting in there when they brought it up, and I'm trying to keep my shit together because it's not even my leg. And we'd only been together for a bit over a year at that point. And So I'm trying to be like strong and supportive, and because he's being so positive and cheery, I was like, well, shit, you can't really let down the team. And he's sitting on Pinterest looking up all of these prosthetics that he's going to buy. Meanwhile, I'm like walking to my car and then sitting in my car and just having these like emotional breakdowns because it was so stressful. Like it was really shit, to be honest. Like,
yeah, well,
for me,
would have been harder for you. For me, honestly, the accident happened, and then I was like 6 weeks in hospital, food brought to me, Netflix. Like, I was less stressed about having my leg cut off than running my business, which should have told me something back then.
That's true. Whereas we'd only just gotten a new puppy. So if you've seen Connie, our black and white bulldog, we'd only gotten her a week before the accident. So I was juggling like this little puppy at home. I was still working for BHB, so doing like 13-hour days and then trying to be at the hospital, spending time with him as much as I could. So look, I was on the brink. My friends were amazing through that because, yeah, I found it really stressful. And then I felt so guilty with how stressed out I was when I wasn't the one injured. But yeah, that was certainly something else. So we ended up getting all of the surgeries done, and then yet again doesn't like being stuck in hospital. So he pushed to be released early. So he ends up coming home a couple of days before Christmas. Was it the day before? Yeah. There you go. So he came home the day before Christmas. So Christmas, we obviously didn't do anything hectic with family because he was. No, we didn't. Yeah, we did. Oh, that was a Christmas Eve. So you must have come home before that, a couple of days before. I think. But Christmas Day, I'd like planned to have just this little low-key Christmas, just the two of us. So I went and got like presents and like cooked up lunch and had like Christmas tablecloths. And then I'd had, I reckon, 2 sips of my wine, thinking like, you've earned this last few weeks. And then his foot started bleeding everywhere. And he's like, oh, we need to go back to emergency. I was like, put down wine. And so we spent Christmas Day in emergency, New Year's Day in emergency, and then our anniversary in January back up at emergency, which made me feel like maybe he was just trying to avoid events with me.
Definitely wasn't.
But yeah, it was really unlucky. But look, gradually healed. Didn't do any of the recommended rehab as usual, but you were back in the gym. I reckon it would have been within a month because you were still in your wheelchair.
Yeah, I was like, well, I crutch in with the moon boot on.
I think you did try with the wheelchair and it was shit because you didn't fit between a lot of the bits of equipment.
Yeah, plus it was just embarrassing wheeling over to a machine and hopping out and hopping on it. So I was just like, I just crutch around the gym. So. But I was like, I was hard because it had the lung thing and then just got my body back.
Yeah.
And then had the foot thing. So in hospital, I was determined to like keep it, I was like, fuck this. Like I'm gonna.
True.
I got the special bed changed, so I got one of the beds for
the rehab
with the frame above it, so I could like do chin ups and that, which lasted for a couple of weeks until they were starving me 2 out of 3 days, and I was like, yeah, this is not happening.
No, well, you ended up losing like 17 kilos, I think, around the foot in hospital. Like you were a shadow when I brought you home compared to usual. So, and then with the compartment syndrome they ended up having to do incisions from his knee to his ankle, putting in pumps. 4 pumps and detaching your calf from your
Yeah, so I had this old man, because when they like, compartment syndrome is just swelling in a certain
But it's serious, like you can lose your leg.
Definitely, like I could have lost my whole leg and it could have just kept going up to my groin.
Oh no.
But what was I saying?
I think you were going to say about how loose it was.
Oh, yeah. So I had like this old man, it looked like a 90-year-old's calf hanging off the back of my right leg.
Because all of them, like, I don't know what it is.
Well, they just detach all the nerves. And like when they cut the muscle, because they take you from your knee to your ankle and then separate your calf off so they can get in there, drain it all out and put all these pumps in to take the fluid off. So,
yeah.
And then I wasn't sure if the calf had ever come back, but it came back. It came back.
So that surgery was a bit over 3 years ago, and then it sort of started off okay,
Well, at that point, by the end of the hospital stint, then they had taken off my big toe and my first metatarsal.
So they ended up attaching, so from the picture you saw before, for those that are watching where it was really open, they ended up taking a big flap from his thigh and attaching that onto his foot. So this is what it looked like with the thigh attached to the top of it with like skin grafts on the side.
And the artery plugged in.
And they took some arteries and used those in his foot, which is absolutely incredible that they can do that. And then once it healed up, it was looking like this. So not too bad, basically just missing the big toe, still had his other toes healed up okay. But then the bones started to gradually deteriorate because there were still blood supply issues.
So
they became really fragile.
The big toe on the first metatarsal got taken off the original surgeries, and then the next toe over, which they were thinking about taking off in the first surgery as well, but they were like, it's still getting circulation to the toe and that sort of thing, so they left it there, which was great for me mentally because, hey, I only lost a big toe. But then over the next 3 years, it just kept, and because I was back working full time, pushing it to the limits, the bones just, the second metatarsal and the second toe stayed all right, but the second metatarsal died back, and it ended up dying back like an inch, which pulled the second toe down, which they're all linked together with tendons. So it's kind of like those toes that were originally straight, they sort of walked all around, and I was walking on broken bones. The bones ended up shattering in there because they got really fragile from not having the blood supply. So then he's walking around on like this shattered, warped foot, which, needless to say, would have been incredibly painful. It definitely wasn't pleasant, but it becomes normality, like getting used to the pain. Yeah, like I didn't have painkillers for the first 2.5 years. Yeah. And then we switched, like we went on the painkillers. We went on the painkillers. Went on the painkillers just to take the edge, which I regret doing straight away. It was a bit of a slippery slope. It was definitely, because you take painkillers, and when you start, like, you take the painkillers and they hit the pain on the head. So you're like, this is great. But then slowly but surely you build up a tolerance, and you've got to have more and more painkillers, and then, which is all fine, but then you realize that the painkillers start to affect your mood, start to affect your motivation, start to turn off your emotions. Yeah. So, I mean, you saw it, like the other times I came out of hospital and I was off the painkillers within 3 or 4 weeks of getting home and just pushing through. Whereas this time I was on the painkillers from before I went in for surgery. Yeah. Just to try to push through, because my surgery got pushed back twice. Yeah. So it was supposed to be earlier on last year, and then got pushed back. So I was just trying to bridge the gap, So we ended up having another surgery, but we had another surgery. We're a team. In October last year, where they decided to just do a full front foot amputation. So he's transmetatarsal. There you go, that's a technical word. So he's kept his ankle and his heel, but they've amputated all of his toes and all of those first metatarsals. Yeah, if you're comfortable. But yeah, so this is where we are at the moment. Oh, yeah. So this is what your foot looks like. Oh, wrong foot. Yeah. So this is it now. So obviously no toes. We've still got the thigh flap on top from the other surgery. We are going to be getting another one to debulk it a little bit, because there is a lot of tissue in it because obviously it's his thigh. And the thigh has a lot more fat cells than what your foot has. So making that a little bit smaller so that it fits in shoes a little bit easier. Yeah. But yeah, your recovery, I don't know, like I feel like you've done pretty well considering. It's like the pain, because I'm off the painkillers now. So it's been a long road to get off the which again, do not recommend painkillers. Like there's so many alternatives out there, and I wish I had gone down that road and just pushed through the pain a bit more, because coming off them is harder than dealing with the pain every day. Like, because you get anxiety when you're coming off them, and and you just, again, you don't feel the emotions that you used to feel, you know, like you remember when we first started dating, and I was very happy, and then you saw me the last year, I was just cold, you know, like just didn't want to do anything, didn't want to be anywhere, didn't want to talk to anybody, just wanted to be in my own space and just bubble up, which I 100% put down to the painkillers. So yeah, glad to be almost done with them. You know,
you are definitely more like your old self now.
Yeah, like, and I can feel it as well, because I knew when I was on them, I wasn't the same person, but the relief from the just take everything away for a few hours. You know, once you've been through this stuff, it seems like it's been like the last 8 years of my life, just going constantly beat down, recovery, beat down, recovery, like meningitis, lung, foot, like, and they're all just been like, you just get back on top and then you just bam, you know?
That would be hard. I feel like a part of you might, like, you're more enthusiastic maybe to the first time round, but did you ever feel
100%.
like, just fuck this shit, like I've had enough?
Oh, it's like, especially this last,
like, why me?
well, plus it was 2020, you know, it was a rough year for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I've got my own businesses too, so going through that, having my own businesses, and then trying to run them as well as deal with the pain, like, everything just turned into a big bucket of shit, you know. It's just, I just sort of just had this, you know, it's like having a nice house and then you just get home one day and just like, fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I'll deal with it next month, you know.
Yeah.
You just get so beaten down, and it would be really, really hard if I had to go through it by myself. But you kept me sane, babe.
I'm glad. I tried.
You could write a book on it.
I don't know about that, but
I am very stubborn. I am very, like, I'll do what I want to do.
Oh, I know.
When I want to do it, and that's the way it is. Which I'm glad that those things that I do when I want to do them, they're not, you know, deal breakers for you. You just get a bit pissed off, but you also know I've got a good heart.
You do.
And I'm just dealing with shit my own way.
So
you know,
what advice, if there's people listening that they're going through some sort of, whether it's physical, mental, whatever rut, what advice would you give them to start taking steps to get out of it?
Well, if you so say you had one of these life-changing things, right, and you're in hospital, reevaluate what makes you happy, because that's what's going to keep you going. You know, I was lucky that I was very passionate about building and very passionate about the things I did. So while I was in hospital, I was just manifesting what was going to happen when I got out. You know, it's a snore.
If you can hear snoring in the background, that is Sheriff. Sheriff, stop snoring.
He's not going to stop. Dog life is. Do a podcast about dogs one day.
Oh man, the attitude cannot.
Yeah, what was I saying? God, me. So just staying positive. So it's a really good time to just reset and look at your life and say, does this stuff make me happy? Does this stuff bring value to my life? Does this stuff that I'm doing make me want to get out of bed in the morning? Because if it's not something that when you wake up early, and you know, but if you like, you know, you see me for like coming off these pain, like I'll wake up at 6 and then I'll still be in bed at 9, and that's 100% the painkillers, just numbing everything. But if you've got something there to look forward to, you know,
so like hang on to things that you're passionate about.
And find your goals and find what makes you happy and just pursue them, you know, and just know that there's always something that you can do better, which a lot of people just get stuck in the rut of their 9 to 5 and then they come home and sit in front of the TV. And we live in a crazy time where there's so much opportunity and information, and you can learn anything on the internet. So it doesn't matter if you're bedridden or whatever, you can find something there to spark an interest and give you motivation to get up and do something, you know? I mean, I've done some crazy inventions and that sort of thing over my time, which that's what gets me
Excited.
It's coming up with something new that people will love and bring value to other people's lives. You know, that's whereas everybody gets caught up in the whole, you know, what have I got, as opposed to who have I got.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
No worries.
So what's next?
Is there anything else you wanted to add? I would say drop your handles, but to be honest, he's not much of a social media kind of guy. There's not a lot on his Instagram other than photos of our dogs.
I'm a social media recluse.
He is.
I just like to focus on my actual life.
But look, what is your Instagram? Tom.build?
Yeah.
But look, if you're into bulldogs, then you'll probably be into Instagram, but
that's 200 and something followers. I'm big time, so they're quite the horde just after me.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking about it. It's not always easy to sort of talk about these sorts of things, and I'm sure people listening really appreciate you being so open.
Hey, we could do this again sometime.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. If you have any questions, drop them below and I can definitely get an answer from Tommy to you guys. Until then, we'll see you in the next episode.